This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Tricia McMahon.
But back to this idea of missing few things. If you are okay, I would like to hear more. So people who are in that stage now, or who are not in relationship, like me, uh, I'm not in high school, but still, like when you say you wish you hadn't missed on a few things, but if you go back, let's say you were a time traveler, what would you change?
Hmm. I think probably being a little more firm with or confident in my choices and my decision making. And I'll try to explain that. So, like back in the day, if you went out on a date, and the guy like this, and this, you would just do that, all those things,
Like hunting, fishing, driving a jeep
Yeah,
or a truck
yeah, yeah. Minus the
and a dirt
hunting.
bike.
I don't think I would date somebody that was a hunter. No, I don't want any hunters coming after
Okay.
me. But yeah, but exactly. And just not being who I was, not saying, "Hey, you know what? I don't like fishing." So,
Mm.
but I love bowling. So let's do bowling, and I think
Or having a balance. Okay. So this weekend we can do fishing. Next weekend we can do bowling. So
yeah.
both go
Yeah,
ahead.
like I really feel like I let myself down in a little bit of a way of not being more, well, this is me, and if you don't
Mm.
like that, that's okay, but there's no reason for us to continue dating, or I'm not going to go out on a date with you again. I was kind of like, I felt like I had to mold myself into what the expectations was of from the other person that I was on the date with or boyfriend wise.
Mhm.
And that part, I probably, I wish I was a
Was
little.
this a fear base? Like if you
No.
had questioned, they might have left you, or that was just the norm that
Yeah,
women are
I think,
supposed to
yeah.
follow whatever their men say or do.
Yeah, I think it was probably a little bit of everything. Back then we weren't quite as vocal as a woman is now.
Mhm.
Um,
You were not.
no,
Okay. Well, all women were not.
yeah,
Mostly women, I should
yeah,
say.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's a lot easier now. And it's still not as easy as it is for a man to be vocal versus a woman. But for instance, I told you when I was 12, I got a motorcycle
Mhm.
for my birthday, and I loved riding that motorcycle. And I was with all the guys, and everybody had bikes, and it was at the end of Footloose, where everybody's riding around on their motorcycles. And as I got older, I started thinking, well, I can't ride a motorcycle. I'm a girl.
Mm.
I need to start, wearing fluffy sweaters
Mm.
and doing, what boys like to do, and not the motorcycle riding. But so I never got my license back then, which I wanted to do. And looking back, now I have my license and a motorcycle, and it's.
You have a motorcycle?
I do. I have a Harley.
Oh, great. I don't know. Can we talk about brands?
Oh no,
You can
can
just use that. Boop. Oh, did you see my motorcycle?
do you have one?
Yeah.
No. What
What
do you?
floor are you parked at?
I'm on the third.
Okay. So why? How did you come to the second floor?
I walked out with
'Cause I was trying to
the
save the
ramp.
walking, and I
I
was like,
know.
okay, I'll
And then
let
I
you in.
saw that woman, so she
Oh,
let me in,
okay.
and now we're best friends now.
Oh, great. Yes. What does she
um,
do?
no, I do not know what she does. I'm kidding. I could guess. No, I don't know.
No, I mean there are a lot of people like
Yeah,
lawyers and accountants
yeah,
and therapists and all.
yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah,
Yes.
I'll show you that after
Oh, I'd love
we
to
wrap
see that.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so funny. So yeah, so now like I do the things. that make me happy, and I think that I wish I was a little more assertive back then, um, to not necessarily please others and the expectations of others and how I should act and look and dress and as opposed to now,
I have been in that situation, and I didn't know better. I thought that's the norm. That whatever the woman says, you just
Yeah.
go with it. Never
Oh,
question that. But deep down, I questioned, oh, why doesn't she be considerate of the fact? I hope she knows I don't like this, or there could be some balance and all
yeah.
that. But no, I don't think it was. And it was very rare, more like like you do a favor. Okay, I know you like this, so maybe we can do that.
Yeah.
But the general idea was that whatever I want must be done.
Hmm.
So I thought maybe that's the norm. And later on, it turned out to be a disaster.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But going back, let's go back to the movie now, because we have two people dating. They are it's a movie, so we show their extreme weakness, that they are addicts to two different things.
Yes.
Why? Because maybe they don't love themselves, or yeah, I'd like to hear more about, because I have heard a lot of people talk about that, right? So everyone has, of course, like a little different, and that's great. I want everyone to have their own understanding of the film.
Yeah.
But what do you think of their relationship, initially immature, their own addictions versus later?
Yeah. I mean, I think they definitely both had their own issues that probably stemmed from maybe their upbringing or um you know it- fear of commitment is one of them, so keeping something at a distance, knowing that you're not putting yourself out there, so there's no chance of getting hurt or being disappointed, and then on the flip side, putting too much of yourself out there, to almost mold yourself into what that somebody's expectation is of you. And so I think when you have those two dynamics, they're so opposing that it's almost impossible to find a common ground that would allow a relationship to flourish, as opposed to have disappointment on both sides. And I think that's ultimately, as you get older and more mature, and your goals in life and what you want to have in life change, you're willing to look at those things and change them, and not necessarily for the other person but for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to know this. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't working for me. What can I do differently as a person? Um, and once you kind of fix that, your surroundings all start to come into play and make sense. And I think that's what ultimately happened
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, and everything just kind of worked its way out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people have their fears of abandonment or
Mm-hmm.
pain, and so they don't take chances on other people,
Mm-hmm.
um, for fear of that, for
Yeah.
fear that the other person's not going to deliver what they need, as opposed to not not relying on somebody to do this for you. When you figure it out and you know what you need to make yourself be a fully functioning, um, person in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
without the falsities, out, like making somebody believe you're something that you're not,
Mm-hmm.
is what makes a solid, and I to me it's more of a friendship. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
friendship with fun benefits that come
Yeah.
along with it, as opposed to, you know, "Oh, we have such a passionate love life, but, I know nothing about this person,
Mm-hmm.
or I would not be there for them in the
Mm-hmm.
time of need." So it's to me, it's more of a friendship that
Mm-hmm.
develops when you start working on your own inner problems,
Mm-hmm.
which again everybody has based on what they have gone through growing up in life. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
One thing I want to ask you. You mentioned Kenny was your favorite character.
No, he was he was the opposite of my favorite. Well,
Because didn't you text me about his name?
yeah, I did. I
You
said
did.
I'm glad that he got kind of kicked to the curb because he's the destruction of everything that's good,
Oh no, no. I mean, a villain could also be your favorite character.
No, yeah,
Uh,
I'm not a villain fan.
okay, great. So, who was
Unless,
your
yeah.
favorite character?
Ah, probably. I was really proud of the mother.
Mhm.
Um, I think I think that's very hard on a lot of people to when you're almost in the middle of something. She was torn between her daughter's thought process and expectations and her husband's. And I think there's a lot of that in family dynamics that somebody is in the middle and has to choose. um
And would you say, sorry to interrupt, but
mhm,
would you say what you talked about yourself?
mhm.
And if I heard correctly, I heard you saying you wish you had more voice or you had gained that sense of autonomy or
Yeah,
individual confidence and individual identity.
yeah, yeah,
So the mother's character, I thought, evolved like that. The arc of the
yeah.
character was that she, after the second or third act, that's what she became
Right,
because she gained her own, and there wasn't anything therapy or something.
right,
It's just she came to a realization because of the events who she is and where she was and what was right and what was not.
right. I mean, and because she changed so many things about herself to please him
Mhm.
as his wife, and just kind of squashed who she was inside and wanted to do in life and experience. And it didn't necessarily mean that she was ending the marriage, but it just meant that she was going to focus more on, the things that she deserved. Um, you to not just be, I mean, I think you get kind of pigeonholed into names like a wife, there's certain expectations, but there's also a person behind that I think back in the days where it was like, oh, the mom stayed home and the dad went out and worked and paid the bills and the mom had no clue what was going on. And
I know a lot of guys who stayed home, and actually, my
yeah,
father.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I was gonna say, okay,
yeah,
but he's not even from this generation. Like the people I know are Gen Z and millennials who are staying home, and their wives are working, and they're raising kids
right.
because they can work from home too.
Yeah, I think a lot of it
So
is that
yeah.
too, that we all realized during that time that we could work remotely, and so not really going back fully to that. You can work at
Hmm.
home, and I think there's a lot more men that are open to that. They realize that, hey, I want to spend,
Hmm.
6 hours with my daughter or my
Hmm.
son, and I'm okay if I don't
Hmm.
have, the little plaque on my desk. And I think that's great. And but back then, and even still now, depending on the environment, there is like these expectations of, if you're the wife, this is what you do. You have dinner ready, and it's like, come on, it's a team now.
Hmm.
And so I'm not even sure what my my
No,
point
no, it's
was.
great. Like we were talking about the protagonist's mother. in the movie,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what did you think of the ending? Because we kept it more open ended. We didn't go to an extreme to show, some movies will end with like, okay, married. What did they write after the car? There's a car, and behind that is written recently married or something like that. The car
Yeah.
is going,
Yeah. Yeah.
or they got married for real
Right.
and they're
Right.
in bridal now outfit with a kiss, or somebody got divorced.
Right. Yeah.
We don't show all those things.
Yeah. It's
And
open ended. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe more like a work in progress type.
Right. Right.
Because the real life is like that. So
Absolutely.
things happen and happen in extreme ways too, like you said these days.
Yep.
But how did you think of that, especially when you think of the mom, that she considered the
Yeah.
way the dialogue is,
Yeah.
especially the dialogue that's in the bedroom when the dad has that wound and
Yes.
thingy,
Yeah.
bandage, right?
Yeah.
And so she's saying she's considering, but
Right.
she doesn't say. It's not a very heightened emotional scene,
Right.
and both the characters, we kept them away to
Right.
show the distance,
Right.
symbolism of the distance, but they are talking at a very human level. They are not angry, arguing,
Right.
talking over. So there's listening going on there.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it was super powerful of what she was saying, but not in the sense of like fireworks going off and I'm out of here. And it was more of her just realizing maybe the things that she was kind of settling for, that she didn't want to do that anymore. And like to your point about just considering things, and this is what's going on. It doesn't mean tomorrow I'm going to apply to a new job down the street. It's just that she had realized that maybe some of the things in her own life and in her own choices were being put on the back burner. And yeah, it was very powerful. And when people get to that point, you know a realization that they're not living their life to the fullest. I think it's just one of those feelings that you can't really describe. It's just the strength that comes with that, you know, or re- living in a relationship and just the same thing repeating itself and expecting one day it's going to be different, um, but not doing anything to make it different is, and then the one day you wake up and you're like, no, no more. I'm going to do this different. And so, and somebody may not even know you've had like the epiphany of sorts in a way, but now you've just, figured something in life that is going to make your life a lot better. And I think it's great, I didn't I it's interesting that you said that with the distance, because a lot of it too was the conversations that she was having with her daughter, the opposing conversations, what her daughter thought and versus what she thought. But then, hmm, you know, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. And I think that's listening why listening is so powerful. When two people are arguing, there's no listening, because their goal is to get their point across, and whether it's being louder or, just a ruder, whatever.
Kenny's scene is like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that's intentionally
Right.
the way he's leaning
Yes.
over, and that's intentionally filmed, the body language,
Yeah.
that way, the distance between both the characters.
Yeah.
And the dad is sitting, so Kenny is a bit uh, powerful because he's a bit taller in that
Sure.
posture,
Yeah.
hovering
Yes.
over,
Yes.
and then it's a handheld camera,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So I make sure, and again, I'm not perfect and I'm still learning, but I always make sure in my movies, in my series, or whatever we do, uh, there's a symbolism
Mm-hmm.
and the way these characters are blocked, the technical term, the blocking of the characters and the colors even they wear.
Yeah.
Like colors represent a lot of things,
Yeah.
or their mannerism, and what story are they telling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of energy they are showing us.
Right.
What's the level of their emotional state and all that. So I try to do that, and I always try to tell a story through that channel too. So if you have, say, your volume turned off, still you could get an idea of
Right.
what's happening.
You could see which one was trying so much harder to get
Mm.
their point across by, being taller up, being more, animated with their talking and their aggression and, not just, stating their case and then listening to maybe an opposing opinion.
Mhm.
There was none of that. So
There's another scene that comes to my mind where Kenny is standing and talking to three elders, and he does not sit. Whereas we
yeah,
have tons of meetings, and
yeah,
you might have more meetings than me.
yeah,
A lot of times we'll say, "Oh, we don't have one chair, so let me drag a chair,"
yeah.
right? But he doesn't do that.
No, he,
And he stands because he, instead of listening, he's telling them. Sometimes
yeah,
we tell the other person,
yeah,
and whatever they say doesn't matter
yeah,
because
yeah.
they're supposed to heed to me.
Yes. I have a perfect example of that too.
Mm.
So I set up a meeting to talk to my dentist with some procedures that I was very happy with. So my expectation was that we were going to discuss it like in a little room chair meeting. And I didn't really know this dentist because he had just came aboard. And
Mm.
but he so when I went in, he knew that I wasn't happy. So we didn't go into a room that of chairs and eagle. He sat me down in the chair that you
Mm.
go to the dentist and did the same thing, just stood over me.
Mm.
And looking at it, I'm like, that is such a quite the trying to do the
Mm.
intimidation factor of
Mm.
it. And of course, as I was explaining the things that I was disappointed in, he didn't listen at all. He just started, rebounding with something even louder. And
Wow.
yeah, it was really interesting.
And this is a qualified dentist?
Yeah, yeah, he was super kind.
Because I would assume in medical profession they teach some sort of bed manners.
You would think, yes, he was
Oh no,
extremely
bedside manners, right?
condescending.
Did
Yeah,
I say
yeah,
bed manners?
bedside.
Bedside
Yeah,
manners.
I
Sorry.
I knew it, and you would think in that industry. But I think it was because he knew I was already coming in. I wasn't coming in as a happy customer, and so his thought process was to I don't know, get above the playing field of, intimidation. I don't know what I'm talking about. He
Mhm.
does. And
He
so,
was supposed to tell you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was interesting to see that dynamic.
That dynamic happens in the movie too when the lead,
Yeah,
she is there are three patients, and I know originally it was written two, and I added one more because I wanted more like when we write a play, there's like act one, two, three, or three is like a happy medium for the transformation. That first, she's really not happy.
yeah.
She the way she treats the patient,
Oh,
and
that's right. Yes, yes.
and I know
You
a friend
dismissed her.
reviewed,
Yes.
yeah, a friend
Okay.
reviewed the movie, and he used the phrase, poor bed manners, or
Yeah.
awful bed manners." And then the second patient, she is now using her human side
Yeah.
to cheer him up and say, "Oh, have a healthy diet," and all that stuff.
Right.
But the third one, now third is again the test of her faith, and we don't know. We kept it open ended. We don't know. She identifies a lot of people, like you mentioned. They have grown up in a traditional Christian household, but they don't keep up with that organized religion. So we
Right.
don't know where she stands with that. Maybe she believes in God, but not the church.
Yeah.
But she now has to think on her feet about forgiveness, because the third patient is her husband's girlfriend or ex girlfriend, but he was cheating on her with her,
Yes.
right? So when she sees her, that girl doesn't know about that.
Right. Right.
But for the lead, thinking, oh my God, now she's here, I can punch her, I can yell at her. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
human emotion, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But now she's also a symbol of healing and
Mhm.
symbol of that's what the doctors are considered or were considered.
Right. Right.
And she represents healing, she represents comfort, she
Right.
is the one who is supposed to take away your pain.
Mm-hmm.
And should she give the girl pain
Right.
or not?
Or
And she actually gives her more an advice that, hey, I'll give you sugar coated advice without giving names, that sometimes you gotta be wise about. The way I asked you, what would you change so someone in your shoes now could maybe see and make some changes in
right.
their well-being and their being and
Yeah.
relationship and all that.
Yeah.
So that's what to me was very sweet seeing that. Of course, I saw that, I directed it,
Right.
but sometimes when you watch it later and you're like, hmm.
Yeah.
And then the editors have their own take. Sometimes they would hint it, and sometimes they will not. They will let the
Yeah.
audience think, and I try not to control them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I remember seeing because her first interaction, I was like, wow, that was terrible. You know, and even the expression on the patient, she was just like, I don't even know what to do right now because I had expected to come here and leave, better than
Mhm.
when I arrived,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And she didn't.
Mhm.
So it was, it's an expectation of sorts that you're looking for. So yes, her third version was ideal in those situations, because especially if people are coming to you for help,
Yeah.
that's not the easiest thing to do for a lot of people to begin with.
And it's hard to be a robotic, because some professions, uh, even like in sales,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can mention a grocery store's name. Okay, and there's once an actress I worked with who used to work at a grocery store. It's a famous chain,
Mm-hmm.
and she said it's a part of a training to when you check out a customer, you'll ask them, "Hey, how you doing?" and all that. So be friendly, so they could return, right? So it's not easy to put on an act when you're going through so much in your life these days. Like this, everything is uncertain and
Yeah.
inflationary, and
Yeah.
less sleep, more chaotic subways and bus or traffic. Right?
Yeah.
It's hard, but I think still we can try uh, to think, what if I was in that position?
Right.
Right. So what if I was that patient in this movie's context,
Yeah.
and I am there to share about my pain, because that represents, like, again, there's a lot of representation. So we
Mhm.
talk about physical pain,
Yeah.
but again, the subtext is the pain, suffering,
Right.
because she's saying I can't do. And a lot of times when we go through that pain and suffering,
Yeah.
we sort of become dysfunctional. And a lot of people then I can't get up, I can't walk out of my bed. I don't want to go to that dinner.
Yeah.
No, I want to. No, I want to stay. So that was a very. These three scenes are in itself very full. I think uh, I could. No, someone else should write a thesis in them,
Mhm.
because the second guy you see, he's writing.
Yeah.
What does that tell you, right?
Right. Listen.
And he's yeah, but no, before the doctor comes
Oh,
in,
okay.
before the doctor comes in, he is engaged in doing something.
Mhm.
Now, some people, you might know more than me, they just can't. The anxiety level goes so high they can't still sit still. So they would need some sort of thing to calm themselves down. And
Right.
then how has he dressed up? What does that tell you? Is he a 9 to 5 guy, or he's the one, like many of my friends who's struggling to find that particular job, which they don't have yet,
Right.
right? And his then why does he say, if you fix this, then you'll be the best doctor in New York City.
Yeah.
So is he expecting something in return by throwing that phrase? Sometimes we do that as humans. So these scenes are extremely powerful, as you mentioned. Well, like most of the scenes are, I think.
Yeah.
But again, my opinion will still be biased because I was involved in it.
Of course. Right.
But as an audience level,
Yeah.
I loved it because I forgot a lot because it took 5 years to complete this.
Yeah.
So when I began seeing the rough cuts, by then it was all out of my system. And I had a total fresh perspective. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
scenes, whoa. In itself, every scene can teach me a lot.
Yeah.
Like really engage me.
Right. Well, it was the reality of it too. A lot of movies now are just so far fetched, and you know, but this was more of everyday happenings. Even to this day. Not necessarily in the 30s or the 60s, but this mentality is still taking place in this day and age, which you know is shocking to a lot of people, because you would think we had progressed to a point where we don't see colors and nationality and all this and religion, but it still is very commonplace in a lot of homes. And having the ability to look outside of that realm is what obviously makes you a better person, and more aware of, or having empathy for other people. It's not just about you and what you believe in. And in the father was a perfect example of just that, the blinders, and just being offended when somebody tried to have him look at it in a different light, or just slightly different than what he had known. And I think and that's a lot of generational thing too. I think a lot of older folks, and I don't like that set in their ways, but in a sense, they grew up dealing with different issues than what our kids are dealing with now. um so they almost don't know how to handle things, or almost look at it like, well, it's too late for me to change anyway. What good is that going to do?
Right.
And I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because every day you should be waking up to say, okay, well, that was not cool. What can I do differently today that makes sure I don't repeat that performance or whatever I did? So, yeah.
That's great you say that because that's the reason this title was finalized,
Yeah.
abrogation.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we also thought it's a good symbolism for the traditional, or I don't know, traditional is not the right word, old, let's say, old US, which is the dad, the representation is like he represents the old America. Kenny represents that force of evil that stir things up.
Yeah.
And the daughter represents modern America. She has also traveled abroad.
Right.
And modern America is also, a lot of younger people want to do something.
Yeah.
For a good change.
Right.
And so she's doing something by volunteering at a medical facility. So she represents.
Yeah.
And her mom, which you already know, your favorite character,
Yeah.
represents the silent side of the US.
Yeah.
And those people who did not know what to do. Should I just trust my leaders and follow them?
Yeah.
Or
Oof.
should I question them then? Okay, whatever you have been doing or telling us, because
Yeah.
previously, before social media, uh, I think I don't have a very vivid picture of it, but before social media, people, say in the Midwest, they only trusted the leaders, or
Right.
they only had two channels, TV channels, and people of a particular branch, like the one I was connected with, they would just hate. They would say, "Oh no, that other news channel is just a bunch of lies. I'm
Right.
just gonna watch this," and that's what they watch, right?
Yeah.
And whatever the channel would say, they would just trust that
Yeah. I mean, it's still,
without a grain of salt.
yeah. And it
Mm,
happens today too, though. I mean, whoever, whatever news you watch in the morning is most likely geared to what you think is the right
mhm.
thought process. But yes. Go ahead.
So yeah, no, I was
Yeah.
saying that what you said, that was the reason the name was kept abrogation. So it's a
Yeah.
question, it's a challenge, it's an appeal to that old mindset,
Right.
right?
And I think to the mom too, it's a lot, and a lot of people feel this way, is that they feel inside that it doesn't feel right, but they don't know how
How to,
to
yeah.
or what to do, you know. It's that person that sees a crime being committed and they're looking like, um wow, this is wrong,
Mhm.
but they don't do anything. And then, the day later they say to themselves, okay, well, why didn't I help? Why didn't
Mhm.
I intervene? Why didn't I call the police? Whatever, whatever the situation is. And I think a lot of people now just feel like this doesn't feel right, but I have no idea what to do
Mhm.
to make it feel right.
Mhm.
And that's unfortunate too.
Yeah, it is.
And that was like the mom. My mom kind of finally realized, hey, it doesn't have to feel this way.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Mhm.